Spoiler warning. This episode will cover the following anime in detail: Attack on Titan, Psycho Pass, and Higurashi. So if you have not watched any of the following anime, I highly recommend that you skip over to the timestamp that will be placed in the video.
Ben,
What's up, Ed?
what are we doing today?
So, Ed, I realized the previous episode that I never really did go into detail about what we do in sociology exactly, or what exactly sociology is about. So tell me, what do you think we do?
Well, I think by definition, sociology is the study of social relationships between humans. Some tangential topics on sociology I can think of would probably be communism, Marxism.
Yes. Yes, I was expecting you to lead with those because, that's the entire, perception of what sociology students actually do. Just rah about communism and just going around, telling the capitalist scum to shut the fuck up. But, no, you see, sociology is a very complex field. I don't think there's any one way to put it. But, yeah, you probably have heard about how sociology is about questioning power. You mentioned is about understanding society and the interactions that occur within it and the individuals within it, as well as there are quite a few unsatisfactory answers that are out there about what it is we do in sociology. And to be fair, I myself still struggle to explain to people outside the field what it is we do exactly. And yeah, so through my 4 years, maybe it is the way that they introduce sociology to us in university, which is just throwing us into the deep end, immediately without any introduction as to what we should be expecting or, because, in most of the schools, they don't exactly teach you about the things that we learn in sociology or the way to learn things that you do in sociology. And it will be the first time that most students actually encounter sociology, which will be in university. And as such, we have no idea what to expect or how we should learn what we are going to learn. So maybe this is just because I'm dumb, but looking back, the way, or at least one of the ways that I have come to learn in how to explain sociology is it is a study about stories, a study of stories, stories about society. Yes.
What exactly do you mean by a study of stories? I've actually done a bunch of lessons on sociology. By a bunch of lessons, I mean 4 months. Yes. I have heard the part about power, in that power is power from the lens of a Foucauldian perspective, Michael Foucault. Mainly the main thing about that was the panopticon, but we can go into that into more detail later. I know a little bit about the study of stories. We did a little kind of a assignment where we had to study the stories behind the founding of a sporting facility or some kind of naturalistic facility. The nature through which we did that was that we went into a library, we dug around for books, and through examining the history of locations or places that was our topic, we kind of drafted out how it came about and examined the kind of a very superficial view on how humans brought about the place.
Yes, I think you have actually gotten the gist of what a story is. So maybe the rough idea is there, and you can actually bring it into the study of sociology, wholesale.
Wait, you mean the study of stories is not just reading 17 volumes of High School DxD or something along those lines?
I mean, that's one way to study story, and I'm pretty sure there's plenty of plot in High School DxD, but no, there's more to stories than that,
I love that kind of fiction, but let's go to a bit more non-fiction. So, what exactly is it about? What is a story in a sociological lens?
Alright, so let me break it down. So you asked the question, what exactly is a story? Well, a story in the most general of definitions is an account of an event, whether it be fictional or not, and the storyteller sets up a scene and describes how the actors within it interact, explicitly or implicitly giving reasons for their actions, and in most cases attempt to give a coherent and compelling account of things. So the catch here is that while most stories attempt to provide a coherent explanation, they may not always be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So interestingly, something else that comes to mind is the stories that society tells you, theories and ideologies. So let's say the theory of evolution by Darwin, or the economic theory by maybe
Demand and supply.
Adam Smith. Yeah. So all these attempt to explain how our reality comes to be and how it functions. So you know how demand supply gives you a very nice theory about how it is we come to an equilibrium price based on different factors. And the example about Darwin's theory of evolution gives us a story about how organisms, through random mutations, attain an advantage over others of the same species and thus become the dominant version of the species. Well, these are very oversimplified, of course, but you can see the general theme over there. They are attempting to give you an explanation of how our society or a certain phenomenon comes to be. And so yeah, this is essentially a study of theories and ideologies as a story. So as per what I mentioned before, what a story is just merely an explanation by someone who is human. So they may not be telling the whole truth, or they may be biased in a certain sense. And as such, we can't exactly trust these stories in their entirety. So we in sociology attempt to study these explanations not as providing an absolute and all-encompassing explanation for our realities, but as stories told to us by humans who view their realities through lenses. And being imperfect and biased as we are, these stories are also influenced by our perspectives. And that is ultimately what I believe it is we do, which is a wonderful way to study this field and potentially any field out there to understand the stories that are being told. But of course, if there's anything that we sociologists love to do, love more than a story, it is dismantling it, ripping up its innards, and finding the imperfections within them to put them on display for the whole world to see. But before that, why don't we see what kind of story our whiskey for tonight will tell us?
Well then, Ben, what whiskey do we have for this episode?
Well, we have a bottle here. It's called the Buffalo Trace whiskey, and it is from a historic distillery, which is the namesake of this bottle, the Buffalo Trace. And yeah, so for the Buffalo Trace whiskey, apparently it is brewed in such a way that it tries to replicate the taste of the very first bottle of Buffalo Trace ever distilled. Yeah.
Sounds great.
Mm.
Historical stuff.
Yes, it is an interesting story. So, shall we have a taste?
Gladly. Okay, Ben, let's try the Buffalo Trace whiskey neat. Cheers, mate.
Cheers. The
It has
smell's not very overpowering.
Yeah, it has a nice flowery scent,
Hmm.
I would say.
It smells sweet. Might be a bit.
We can expect that kind of sweetness from bourbon. So
Mhm.
shall we see how the sweetness fares on our taste buds?
Yeah, the initial punch that most whiskey have isn't really there. It is not too strong.
Yes, it
And-
goes down pretty well. The sweetness does come through. It's not too strong. It's nice and mellow.
And there's a very nice aftertaste of vanilla. To be expected of whiskey?
Classic to a bourbon. I'm getting a very slight woody flavor in my aftertaste. It's not too strong.
But it lasts for quite a good while. Yeah.
Yep. I think we can wrap
That's
this up.
very
here.
nice. Alright, so that was a nice tasting whiskey. So, but let us get back onto the topic, which is stories. So the stories that we will be talking about today are specifically our ideologies. So Ed, in the pilot episode, you actually mentioned that you had an encounter with ideologies before. I think it was about push-ups and bench presses. So
That is correct.
yes, please, will you care to share about how exactly you understood specifically that ideology functioning?
Okay. Well, perhaps I could first give like what I understand is the term ideology.
Yes, please.
So my understanding of the term ideology is that ideologies are collections or systems of ideas within a given context. So economics, you have economic ideologies in how you run like a business or something, or how you run a country. Well, in fitness, it's kind of the same thing. Some people get lazy in their thinking, and so they rely on they generate ideologies or idea systems in order to help them run their exercise processes or their training processes, their planning processes for that. The ideology that I encountered was one of gatekeeping exercises. So it's the idea that one should be qualified through a qualifying exercise before you do another one. So in the case I gave, it was the push-ups before the bench press, in that you should be competent in doing the push-up exercise first before you move on to the bench press exercise. So we have a thought or an idea here, which is that you have kind of a hierarchy in terms of proficiencies, and this hierarchy of proficiencies will guide you in terms of your training progressions. So that is what I thought of when it came to an ideology in exercise.
Well, I wouldn't say that your understanding of ideology is too far off. So, what we understand as an ideology is essentially what we would in sociology describe as the superstructure of a society. So, it constitutes the core tenets of this society. So, in your case, it will constitute the core beliefs in fitness, which is push-ups before bench presses. But the thing about it is that these core tenets are usually determined by those in power, used to justify certain social arrangements. So the push-ups before the bench presses, like they'll give you an explanation for why it's the case, and these are usually, in most cases, internalized by individuals, shaping the way they view the reality. So for most people, such as myself, we do believe that push-ups are the first way to go, like the first thing that you should be doing when doing exercises. So yeah, as long as there is a society, there will be ideology.
I think I'm starting to draw a link a bit better now, in that I could perceive this. We could perceive the society, or in this case, it's more like a social relationship between a coach and a trainee, whereby the coach embodies and enforces their ideology, in this case, onto their trainee. So in the coaching process, they could use this qualification in order to guide their progression. And while I think this ideology is on one hand detrimental, as I have brought about in the pilot, I gave my personal example where I did bench press before push up, and the bench press was what potentiated and paved my way towards being able to do a push up as an obese individual.
Mm-hmm.
And it also helps with the formation of my own counter ideology in that there's no such thing as a qualifying exercise. They're just all tools in order to help you attain a goal.
Yes. So I believe that most of what you said is reflecting of the ideology, except for a small part, which would be that the trainers themselves are the enforcers of the. Actually, no, they are the enforcers, but the ideology usually doesn't just start from there. They are merely just one cog in the entire mechanism that reinforces this ideology in society. So think of them as the police. They don't really create the ideology. They don't really want to spread the ideology. Maybe they do, but maybe they don't know better. But they are just one middling cog in this entire machine.
Yeah, I think it's very contingent on whether they bother to adopt the ideology of this qualifying exercise.
Question of whether they are willing to adopt. I mean, they may not know about counter arguments, but that's a discussion for perhaps another time.
Sure.
So let's get back onto topic. So yeah, as we mentioned, these ideologies are not arbitrary. Well, they aren't really arbitrarily determined by the powers that be, because they should be grounded in some material conditions of said society. For example, in the case of economics, you would expect them to be grounded in the technology that is available and how a society divides the labor necessary for its continued functioning. And in the case for the push-ups and the bench presses, there might be some cases where it is true that push-ups may be the better alternatives to starting off, or there may be some reasons behind setting push-ups as a qualifying exercise that you may not be too privy of, but yeah, they aren't arbitrarily determined most of the time. And some of the ideologies that we are more familiar with are those that are explicitly espoused by the powers that be. So we will usually see them in the political thriller genre of anime, such as Attack on Titan, Code Geass, Gurren Lagann, Shinsekai Yori, Psychopaths, and just to name a few. Yeah. And in these cases, it is usually obvious that certain ideologies have been promoted by the large powers to justify the way that they have shaped the society. So it should be noted, however, that ideologies are unlike Lelouch's power to straight up brainwash people, though they do have a eerily similar ability to cause people to act against their own interests in some cases.
So still brainwashing nonetheless, just the means is different.
Kind of, yes. But yeah, let's just dive into some examples in the previously mentioned anime,
Sure.
where the intentions of the ideologies is explicitly for the sake of dominating the populace. So let's start off with Attack on Titan. I'm sure you have finished the series since
Yeah.
it's such a cultural milestone.
I've read the entirety of scanlated manga for AOT, and I am up to date on season 4 part 2 and waiting on season 4 part 3, the finale.
Yes. So I'm sure most of the audience has at least been made aware of the existence of this anime. And in this anime, the use of ideology is explicitly explored by the creators and is exemplified in both the Walled-Off Kingdom of Eldia and the Empire of Marley later in the series. So the first time that we actually see ideology, as used in Attack on Titan, is when the concept of the three walls is brought up. So maybe not the most outer wall Maria, since that wall actually fell in during the series itself. So we should just consider the inner two walls.
So Wall Rose and Wall Sheena.
Yes. So here are the powers that be, based on their need to ensure that the society of Eldia continues to survive in the face of the Titans, have allocated their citizens to the different areas behind the walls. So with the centralmost wall, wall Shina, being the most centered and the most protected. And they justify the division of the people based on merit and importance. So yeah, in the case of wall Shina, the people that are hidden behind it are the royals of the empire, as well as certain influential political the leaders, as well as the military police, who get to the rank through being some of the best in the basic military training.
That's true.
So essentially, that is the division of the populace. Everyone else is put into wall. What's it?
Maria?
Walrose. Sorry,
Walrose.
Walrose. Maria fell, right? So we can also see that there is a division earlier on, when you can see the outcropping at Wall Maria housed more peasant-like individuals who serve a purpose of drawing in titans as titan bait, so they don't attack Wall Maria directly. Yeah.
That is kind of true.
Yeah, it was explicitly stated in the explanation part of the manga. Yeah.
I do love me some cannon fodder. Sounds great.
Yes, and so did the powers that be. So yeah. They justify the division of labor, and ideology is used to sorry. Yeah, so ideology in this case was used by the military of Eldia as well to shape the belief of their soldiers, which is evident when the garrison had a dispute between whether to close the gate or whether to leave the gate open for the citizens. So in the garrison's case, their commitment to defending the walls even at the cost of civilian lives reveals a bit of the ideology that they have been fed. The MP Brigade's commitment to the maintenance of the order, including the silencing of political criminals or those who know too much, as well as the Survey Corps, which reveals the ideology in their dedication to recover what has been lost to the Titans, to the point of self-sacrifice. Yeah.
Yes. Perhaps you could talk a bit about Erwin Smith, the captain of the Survey Corps.
Mm-hmm.
I think he is the central individual behind the, we could say, nearly suicidal in ideologies behind the Survey Corps and their actions. They have a strong dedication towards alright, you could say that they perform their missions with such drive and passion to the point that they are willing to trade their lives in order to explore.
Mm-hmm.
There's also that part of the anime, or that one significant point where Erwin leads everyone on a suicidal charge against the beast titan, the one to which Flock is the Floch, whatever. Flock is the only one who makes it out alive. I think without the ingrained ideology of perhaps self-sacrifice within the Survey Corps, the new members would not have been inspired to follow Erwin along with said suicidal charge. It's quite obvious Flock wanted the mutiny at that point, but he still went along with the suicidal charge against the Beast Titan in order to pave the way for Levi to chop him up.
Right. So in the case of ideology, it doesn't always have to be negative, because it is just an explanation for how the way society is shaped and whatnot. And sometimes ideology is very useful in guiding society towards a certain objective. So you could say it is something to be used for achieving certain objectives. Yes. So in the case of Levi's fostering of the dedication towards the mission objective, you could say that it's not entirely bad, but it is also for the sake of dominating those under him. Yeah. But in each instance, we can see that it is apparent that there are those who do not wholeheartedly believe in the ideology. So remember I mentioned how there was dispute within the garrison,
Yep.
whether they wanted to close or open the gates, right? Yeah, so
That's
we can
correct.
see that there are some people who do not internalize the ideology, and in these cases, they may or may not actively fight against this ideology. And this just highlights how ideologies do not have to be accepted by everyone for them to function. So this accepting is particularly done by those who stand to benefit from the ideology, and those who do not tend to not accept the ideology. Yeah. Yet, due to the ability of the powers that be to coerce dissenters into obedience, then the limited ability of the discontented dissenters to create significant opposition, little explicit opposition to the ideologies could be seen in the first few episodes of AOT. So you can remember how the military police is able to control the population. Yeah, we can see that power rests within the MP and not within the citizenry, and therefore there is not much opposition that could go on in the citizenry. So,
Well, I suppose that the MP control their dissenters via the use of force of arms.
Yep.
And the common citizenry do not oppose them in light of force of arms, although they do have the superior numbers, I take it.
Yeah, so well, that's a bit of a nuance that we could go into detail about, but it might take up too much time. So a simpler way to put it is that the reason why numbers may not always result in explicit opposition to the ideology,
Pyrrhic victories.
not so much. It is more what we would call class consciousness. So it's like, how would we put it? So it's not everyone has the same, is not on the same page. So you can see in the case of the Eldian Empire, even though the gate is closing for every single resident of Maria, yeah, some still want to push their some still try to force their way through in for the sake of getting away from the Titans, while others just stand at the side because of fear. So unless all of them act together at once
To
they
force the
will-
gate open.
yeah, they will never make it through altogether. So it may not be their fear so much of the arms, it's just that each individual is not communicating well enough to create a coordinated dissent.
Rebellion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, in the case of the Marlian Empire and the individuals from Eldia who live within the Marlian Empire, this showcases another example of ideology in practice. So, in the Marlian Empire, the Eldians were indoctrinated to believe in their inferiority and that they should be thankful to the Marlian government, despite their living conditions being significantly worse than the Marlian counterparts. So this arrangement arises out of the Eldians' potential to be used as weapons of war, while the tools for them to gain such power lie in the hands of the Marlians. So the serum to turn them into true titans. If I'm not wrong.
I think it's spinal fluid.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is like this dichotomy between the Eldian and Marlian. Yeah, so this dichotomy between the Eldian and Marlian Empire in the acceptance and belief in ideology may cause some of you to wonder why people over others are more susceptible to ideology. And this is one of the questions that we have discussed in our sociology classes as well.
Yes,
And-
so what makes people more sheep than others?
Yes, so there is no simple answer to this. There's a reason why the field of psychology and philosophy exists as well. So they attempt to understand why some people are more sheep than others as well. And but yeah, some of the things that we can deduce from the many factors are that whether ideology is accepted includes things like education, exposure to the ideology, as well as interactions with others both of the same social group and of those outside the social group, among other things. So, yes. So that's about it for Attack on Titan, and I shall move on to examine ideology in Psycho-Pass.
Sure.
So in Psycho-Pass, it is a bit more explicit than in Attack on Titan. So they actually delve into it in more detail, discussing the factors for the ideology, the makeup of society, and everything within this field of study.
Yeah, it could be that because Attack on Titan is a bit more of it's a more fantasy kind of dystopia, whereas the Psycho-Pass hits us as a more sci-fi but closer to reality dystopia.
Well, I think phaser guns are generally considered fantasy as well, don't you?
Sci-fi could be a branch of fantasy, just the more high-tech part.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it could be the way of writing as well, since Attack on Titan is supposedly a more shonen.
No, I think they're both quite seinen in nature, but I do think that there is a greater flair in terms of drama when it comes to how Attack on Titan is written. The nature of anime fights can be quite I think it's very much dependent on the context and the characters.
Fair enough. So yeah, but in Psycho-Pass, we can see the material conditions of the society being explored in more greater detail, and it becomes evident within the first few episodes that human labor is generally not necessary for the functioning of society and has been delegated to technology.
Well, if only that could be the case for nowadays. I'm sure the elderly would be living life a lot better, but you know.
That is a whole nother topic that we shall get into in a future episode, but
That sounds great.
yeah, let's. But yeah, in the case of Psycho-Pass, most of the humans are left with not much to do in society. So you can see like the home is entirely automated, and essentially you only need humans to perform specific human interactional based roles, and nothing is being produced by them. So yeah.
So they kind of live the modern day fantasy of staying at home, playing video games, and having someone else do everything for you.
Yes, about right. So, yes, but the thing about this technology in Psycho-Pass is that the technology lies in the hands of the powers who have evidently not distributed its boons across society evenly. So, in the
Life is not exactly fair or equitable, so
I mean, we should strive towards more equitable society, but that's another story for another time.
certainly.
Yeah. In the case of Psycho-Pass, the society, only those who are able to abide by Sibyl, which is the government.
The civil system.
Yes. So only those who are able to abide by the system are deemed deserving of the boons of society, the technology, and those who do not abide by the system are cast aside in the abandoned zones and stripped of much of their rights, including their right to live, should they stray so far away from the norm. So this reflects the ideology that has been propagated by the Sibyl system, wherein obedience to power is valued and forms the basis for distributing rights and benefits. So you can see how ideology is used to justify how society is being divided between those of the middle class and those of the lower class. So the acceptance and rejection of this ideology thus directly results in the living conditions of the citizenry, with those in the abandoned zone being less likely to be accepting of the values and culture of those living under the civil system. So no boons of the automation of society go to those living outside the system.
Well, that's such a shame, and especially when you're unable to match your current conditions to what is a social norm kind of condition.
But unfortunately, the powers that be have decided that, you are living outside the norm, so you deserve to be punished. Yes, but, that's not entirely sound thinking. But hey, the powers that be don't care.
Oh, the powers that be have their own processes, and
Yes.
as we have been talking the entire time, their own ideology which they enforce upon others.
Yes, they have their own utopia that they're trying to bring about in their own mind's eye, but who knows what it is.
It brings about the concept of how one man's meat is another man's poison. And that, well, one person's perspective of an utopia could be another person's perspective of a dystopia, especially when you consider that everyone has different moral values and what they consider their personal ideals or what meets their personal desires.
I wouldn't say it is a medicine and poison perspective because essentially it is the same thing. It's just being unfairly put onto
Distributed.
different. Yeah. So let us put it this way. The rich don't usually have to follow the rules by which they impose on others. So you can think of how
That's true.
generally the rich are able to get away with crimes that us peasants can never dream of getting away
I
with.
suppose it's more along the lines of the rich people, a fine is just a more expensive convenience fee.
Yep.
Whereas to the peasantry or the lower socioeconomic status, a fine is a severe punishment.
I guess that's one way to put it, yeah. So, yeah. So one interesting difference between Attack on Titan and Psycho-Pass is the ability of the citizenry to rise up in opposition to the ideologies of the ruling class. So you can remember how in Attack on Titans, near the end, we actually find the, what was it? Eren,
Eren Yeager? Eren...
the
the Jaegerists.
Yes, the Jaegerists, yes. So they actually did rise up against the Eldian Empire, and they were actually able to score some victories against the Empire. But in Psycho-Pass, the ability for the citizenry to rise up is seen to be near zero. The only people that do rise up against the system are the unique individuals that can't quite fit into the system's definitions of who is deserving and not deserving of good and bad.
I think I kind of get the idea in that Attack on Titan has a military situation where a coup d'etat is possible by people and their force of arms, whereas within the civil system, the policing force is so overwhelming but does not apply to individuals who fall outside its not say jurisdiction but scope of recognition, which is how I believe the term is criminally asymptomatic individuals like Makishima are able to get away because he cannot be recognized as evil
Yep.
by the civil system because his nature is the civil system. The entire civil system consists of brains with criminally asymptomatic thinking.
Right, yeah. That's essentially the entire point that I was trying to bring up. That is, you are catching on. I think you will do well in sociology.
It pays to watch a lot of anime.
Hell yeah, that's right. Anime is a very good source of education. Yes, please watch more. One of us.
We
But
value
yes,
learning. Education could be indoctrination, but
you know,
in our case we see different things.
yes, it's always good to know more. Whenever you know more, you can start questioning more. But yeah, so yeah, there was a lot to take in. I assume that you're still processing half of what I've been saying. But yeah, we have only just scratched the surface with that. And much of what I have just mentioned only covers the overt displays of how ideologies can be used. And these overt displays of ideologies are the easiest to dissent, because if you know that they are trying to push, say, capitalistic exploitation of you can easily unionize, and that is essentially one of the things that has happened. But for some of the for some of the other ideologies that are much more insidious, which we'll cover later, they aren't as easy to spot, and they aren't as easy to break down, which makes them so much harder to dissent against. And yeah, we shall just discuss that in later in this episode. So yeah, with that said, why don't we move on to the whiskey on the rocks, since your glass is now empty?
Yeah, I think we should.
All right.
While ice is melting, shall we try the Buffalo Trace on the rocks?
Yes, let us. Cheers.
Alright, cheers.
Oh. It actually mellows out the taste a lot, and you can actually taste the notes of brown sugar. The caramel taste.
Yes, I would say that it has drawn out the caramel taste for me. I'm getting a stronger hint of the sweetness now.
No, I would say that the aftertaste of alcohol is a bit stronger. It's nearly overpowering. Not really.
I would say that
To my liking.
while it still goes down smooth, you are correct in that the alcohol strength is slightly amplified. Maybe that accounts for part of the sweetness for me.
It's not that bad. It's just a little bit more bitter near the end. But yeah.
Actually, I would say that it's gotten a bit sharper in terms of the spiciness for me. That I'm getting a bit of the spice notes now that it's been chilled, as well as a little bit of the water from the ice cubes getting into it.
Alright.
All in all, I would say that it has been intensified with the addition of the ice. The Buffalo Trace on the rocks it still goes down smooth, although the flavor gets stronger.
Alright, let us move on to the next part. Alright, so Ed, welcome back.
Yep,
Yes.
I'm back.
Alright, let us move on. So, you remember how I mentioned the ideologies are stories. So, you know that stories can come in many forms. And
Yeah.
ideologies also affect many parts of our lives.
Certainly.
Because there are many different kinds of ideologies, from fitness all the way to philosophical. And I'm sure you are familiar with some ideologies like the Sigma grindset culture. Ed.
I think it's a bit less of a culture, a bit more of a meme, but certainly, yeah, I've heard of the Sigma grindset.
Yeah, goddamn, I'm pretty sure you live it. Yeah, but do you think that everyone is able to reach your level of buff?
In all honesty, I don't think so, because most people have a life. I don't. I literally live in a gym. I'm sure that you are well aware, considering that we are recording in it.
Yes, I'm. There's plenty more equipment than I think there are manga books here.
Yeah, maybe if you strain your eyes really hard, you can see perhaps that one tankobon volume of Koha Ace.
Yes.
That is quite niche. Maybe you might see a weekly Shonen Jump, and I think the 2 volumes of Toriko. That is quite niche, man.
Yeah. I mean, who really needs the physical mangas anymore when you can do everything online? But that's beside the point. How about the responsibility of staying fit? Do you think that it should fall entirely on the individual?
Well, I am aware of a meme where I think it's along the lines of like America wants you to be fit in the "We Want You" kind of recruitment poster for the army.
Yes.
I do know that meme. Well, I do think that the responsibility of staying fit is on every individual, as long as they are consciously or they are capable of being cognizant of it. Perhaps I could explain a bit more in the sense that when we are younger, the responsibility of our nutrition lies more often than not in our parents, who are our principal providers in terms of food. And our physical activities tend to be very dependent on the environments that we are in. As when we are younger, we don't tend to be lifting weights. We tend to more often than not be playing games and engaging in more gamified physical activity rather than regimented training. So we don't have the knowledge as well as the cognition of the fact that we should be responsible for our own fitness. We just embellish our fitness and kind of like live it.
Now, you see, these are the beliefs that you have about physical fitness, and in a way, in a way or some way or another, they're actually shaped by your ideologies. Though you may not be privy to what these ideologies are, but we'll get into the specifics in another episode. The fact that you do not question these beliefs on a regular basis shows that you have somehow had these ideologies entrenched into you, that you have come to believe in them, and yeah, they have become part of you, and you are simply not aware that these ideologies actually have that much of an impact on your belief system. Of course, it may be difficult for you who are already accustomed to these ideologies to see how it has affected you, right?
Yeah, I would say that many fitness ideologies have become an integral part of my personal identity. Uh, it's kind of hard to shirk them because they are there are both rational and irrational reasons for why I would think a certain way, and there are times where I could do like personal thought experiments to try and rationalize or challenge my own beliefs, especially when I am introduced to alternative beliefs that would contradict my own.
But the fact that you are essentially affected by these ideologies shows that you yourself are influenced by ideology.
Indeed.
And that is the sinister part about the intentions of these ideologies, that they may not be so apparent at first glance. So what do you think the intentions behind the push-ups before bench presses ideology is?
Well, I could try to rationalize it based on several perspectives. The first perspective I would have is from that of a trainer. I can understand the push-ups before bench press perspective from another ideology, which is the master your own body weight before you try other weights. It's a very bro sciencey ideology in that one should always be capable of being I do believe the term is called a naked warrior, in that if you are stripped of your entire environment, let's say we throw you into a room that is just pure white, you should still be capable of maintaining and improving your own fitness despite the lack of any other equipment.
Right, but you can see that this your understanding of the push-ups before bench press ideology is only provided to you because you are an outsider in a sense. Like you have a outside perspective from this ideology, right?
I would say that I have historically I have been a part of the master your body weight before you touch other weights ideology, and that I have grown out of it as I adopted an alternative ideology, which is that all exercises are tools to achieve goals. So you could say that I have both a perspective as an outsider and an insider from two periods of training.
But how about the ideology whereby if you have the means to and the capability of understanding fitness, that you should be responsible for your own fitness?
I would also say is similar in that there is a phasic process. There is a point in time where I was not educated in sport and exercise science. It's a time where I have been uneducated and I let my parents do what I've stated, the role of the food provider, the ones who guide my own exercise. And then there's a point where I took personal responsibility for my own fitness, and I start to develop the mentality that, hey, it's only when I am aware and I have the knowledge of how to control my own fitness that I need to step up and do it myself, and that other people need to be aware of it first before they adopt a similar position to myself.
But can you explain to me how this ideology would benefit someone in higher power? Will you be able to generate an explanation, a rough explanation?
Perhaps I could.
Please do.
So, let's say that I am a government official in the Ministry of Exercise, aka the Superior Ministry of Health,
Yes.
the one that actually has proper control. As the Minister of Exercise, I would need to first acknowledge. No, I would adopt the ideology I currently have, which is that you need people to be cognizant of their personal responsibility towards exercise first. But how they get there is not going to be uniform, because everyone is going to live a different life, and not everyone finds their personal responsibility to exercise like at a set point. It's not like you just hit puberty at the same time. Everyone is going to have different parents who all are subject to various forms of marketing, various forms of education. They're all going to take different nutritional approaches, diets, exercise. Some people are going to be pulled into different nutrition and exercise cultures. Some of them are going to be put into different cults of dieting. Some people are going to fall into different, I would say, sporting cultures of exercises. Those are just, I would say that those are subcultures of exercise as a whole and nutrition as a whole.
But you can see that, let me put it this way. The ideology whereby you as an individual are solely responsible for your fitness actually benefits the person in charge, because he is not held responsible for society's inability to stay fit, or certain individuals' inability to stay fit. But we have to accept that certain individuals are unable to stay fit and whatnot because of certain life certain factors influencing their life. Let's say,
well, we could say that there is you're not always in control of your ability to be fit.
But you can see how the person in charge has an incentive to push this version of staying fit, because it benefits them in such a way that they don't have to be the one to enforce it. They can push the responsibility to you, and you will help them do their job.
That is true.
Exactly.
What I can say is that if I was in such a position of power, I would try to make it convenient for people to become cognizant of their personal responsibility for fitness.
Right, but not every individual is capable of doing so. But by pushing responsibility onto those people, the person in charge is able to say, well, it's not my fault that you can't stay fit. It is your life choices. But truth be told, people working night shift, which is an integral part of our society.
Correct.
People who are not able to get the right nutrition.
Correct.
People who do not have access to gate-kept knowledge and whatnot, or the equipment.
That is correct to an extent.
All of these people are not able to keep up with their own fitness, but they are forced to believe that it is their own fault that they are unable to keep up with their own fitness. And this is where the insidiousness of ideology comes in. It is not so apparent where the intentions of these ideologies actually lie.
Yes.
How people can benefit from these ideologies.
As you said, I could definitely absolve myself of a large degree of the responsibility if I were to tell everyone that, hey, it's your personal responsibility to be fit. You just need to be aware of it.
Exactly. And this is a topic on hyper-personalization that I may go into in a future episode. But let's get back into an anime reference.
Yes, we've detracted. Let's go back to anime.
Yes, we have gone off the deep end on this. So let's move back to the anime reference, which I'll be using Higurashi for. I'm pretty sure you mentioned that you haven't actually watched Higurashi, so this will be an insight into Higurashi, the anime.
Sounds great. I love spoilers.
Alright, so let's look at the example whereby ideology has been shrouded in a way, by the way it has been sold to the community. So in Higurashi, we follow the lives of Maebara Keiichi and his friends from their club, and the villagers in the scenic village of Hinamizawa. The village seems like an idyllic, peaceful place where the community is tightly knit and the people actually care for each other.
My goodness. What a utopian society.
Exactly. Sounds a lot like the kampong spirit that we have been pushed in Singapore. But in any case, everyone seems to know each other, and whenever someone in the community is experiencing trouble, the whole community will come together to assist that person.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Sounds good, right? Yes.
I would say so.
Yes, a quirk of the village that we come to quickly come to pick up, is their dislike of the outsiders, and seeing as they keep a close eye on them whenever one is around. So this is the case with the police officer from outside the village, and the construction workers for the dam project that was planned to be built in the village of Hinamizawa.
My goodness, it sounds like a case of micro-xenophobia.
I mean, there is quite the discussion of micro-xenophobia in Higurashi, but that's beside the point.
Wait, you mean Higurashi isn't just about girls killing each other?
I mean, there's that too, but, there's plenty more than just, plot.
Oh.
Right?
Oh. Right.
I mean, High School DxD is not just about the plot.
Yeah.
Probably. I haven't actually watched the series, but hey.
No, it's about dragons.
Well, in any case, we can see that in the case of Hinamizawa, they attribute this micro xenophobia to the attributes that these outsiders actually have. So this is the story that they are trying to push, portraying outsiders. So they portray the outsiders as generally lacking a respect for tradition, as seen in the case of Tomitakejiro, who goes around photographing during the Watanagashi festival, which is a sacred festival of the village. And while other forms of explanation go towards the dam building and the community's negative experience with them. So in the case of the dam project, they were going to be displaced by the building of the dam and flooding of the valley, and so they were very against it, and this is one of the explanations that they use for the micro-xenophobia. And one of the other explanations is the heavy investigations by the police into the spiriting away incidents.
Spiriting away?
Yes. What those are, you'll have to watch to find out. But yeah. Another quirk of the village that is revealed to us as the series progresses is the taboo of leaving the village. So there are rumors that individuals who leave the village get cursed by their god Oyashiro-sama due to them experiencing what we come to know as the Hinamizawa syndrome, causing individuals who have left the village for a long time to hallucinate and eventually die.
So actually viral schizophrenia.
Actual viral schizophrenia, but we learn later on that it is actually a cause it is actually caused by parasitic infection of the residents of Hinamizawa, but that's beside the point. So we can see that these beliefs actually form a unique ideology that the individuals of Hinamizawa hold, one that extols community and shuns the foreign. So this is the ideology, right? And this creates a unique little closed-off village town that we come to love. Well, love is a strong word. We come to get attached to. But despite the xenophobic tendencies, it will appear that the ideology was created by the community for the community, right?
Oh, no one loves. It seems that people here really love some kind of systemic xenophobia and racism in a sense.
Hey, it might be natural to human beings in general. Who knows? That's something for the philosophers to discuss.
Hey, who
But,
knows?
Yeah. However, that is hardly the case. The one about being created by the community for the community. As the series goes on, it is revealed to us that the Shinozaki clan which is the overarching bad guys, one of the overarching bad guys, are the ones that hold power within the community and actually propagate this ideology in order to hold on to their power, as their power is intrinsically tied to the physical location of Hinamizawa itself.
Yeah, perhaps you could share a bit more on what this power they have over the community is.
So in the Higurashi series, we see that this Shinozaki clan is actually a historic and old clan that has been around since time immemorial, and they are one of the leaders of the village. So as time progressed, they adapted to the times, and now they are holders of offices in the village. So they represent the village in politics.
So they hold actual political power
Yes.
within the village, but do they hold it outside the village?
Yes, they also hold it outside the village. It is revealed in the series that they actually, well, spoiler alert, they actually kidnapped the son of the prime minister.
That's
For
kind of badass,
political-
actually.
Yes, indeed it is. And yeah, in another case, they also run the mafia which exists within Hinamizawa village.
So now this sounds a bit more, I would say, realistic in a sense. The idea you need some kind of enforcement or guard dogs if you're going to talk about actual political power within a closed community. You need to rule over the people by force and not just ideology. You need the enforcer of the ideology so that they, as like in Attack on Titan, they can't bring force of arms to bear in a dissent.
But see, in the case of Hinamizawa, the mafia per se doesn't really act as enforcers because there is no real need to enforce this ideology, since everyone within the community itself already believes in the ideology, because in some way it also benefits them, right? To have this community spirit, everyone cares for each other.
Perhaps a bit more of an example on how their ideology and thus community spirit has created benefits. A bit more of a tangible example for the audience.
So in the case, in some of the episodes, we actually see the main characters, so Maebara and one of the Shinozaki clan members get into trouble with members of the outside. So we in both cases it was to do with a motorbike clan that came into the village, and these characters actually messed with the motorbike clan, and when they were gonna be beat up by the motorbike clan, slowly but surely, random members of the village actually popped out from God knows where, as though they were actually they actually witnessed the scene from start to finish, and that's where it creates a sense of safety for the members of the village. So that's where the benefits come in.
So what I'm hearing is that the clan kind of operates in a very weird kind of a hive mind,
Yes.
like a bunch of it's like Japanese honeybees. They just like show up in order to back up the guys who are already in trouble when they are fighting hornets.
Yes, sounds about right. Yeah, and we actually see that the xenophobia and the taboo of leaving the village actually results from the real consequences of leaving the village, which is the Hinamizawa syndrome, and the real need to restrict the access of outsiders into the village because of the contagiousness of this syndrome.
You
So-
mentioned the viral nature of
Yes.
the Hinamizawa syndrome.
And this is a very real need and this is a very real reason for the xenophobia. But we can see how the ideology has been used by the Shinozaki clan to create somewhat of a solid power base whereby they are able to maintain their rule and maintain their power.
And thus benefits.
Exactly, but this is pretty much hidden from the members of the Hinamizawa village itself.
Is it hidden, or more so that how they manifest their benefits is just kind of covert?
It is more Covert may be a way to put it. It's just not as obvious to everyone because they don't really see
They just
it.
don't flex it.
Yeah, it's not really like it is a sub benefit of it, and in most cases, like in the case of the dam building, there's actually benefits from leaving the village, but yeah, the ideology just keeps them there.
I see.
Yeah. So we can see here that the intentions behind and the purpose of the ideology that the residents of Hinamizawa hold is different from what it actually appears. And ideologies can be manipulated by those in powers to serve a purpose that is different from what they say it does. And we can see how accepting an ideology wholesale without questioning it actually leads people to blindly follow it and thus become unable to stand up to the powers that be by virtue of their inability to pinpoint the role of the powers in their lives. So we can't really see how, let's say, the Ministry of Exercise.
So my fictional ministry?
Yes, the fictional ministry that you brought up. Yes, we can. It's difficult for us to pinpoint their role in the propagation of the responsibility of exercise being on the individual, right?
Yes.
So hey, maybe ignorance is bliss, but sometimes it may be best just not to know. Who knows? Not me.
Well, if I could just quickly make a Mass Effect reference. Indoctrination.
Indoctrination is a problem in society, but that's for another time. So something interesting to note here is the similarities behind the origins of the ideology between Higurashi and the Attack on Titan example. So ideologies used by both the Marlians and the Shinozaki clan originate from real incidences, but the story that they use to create this ideology but the stories that that result from these incidents are framed by these powers in such a way that allows them to regulate the citizenry by justifying the actions of the powers that be. And this showcases how ideologies are never really objective and most often obscure a hidden interest. But I think it should be evident by now that I really love these dark themes in my anime. But too much shiki is always unbearable.
Ugh.
Yeah, sweet stuff usually does make it palatable, like make these animes more palatable. So shall we try the buffalo trace with the mixer to make
Yes,
it,
I think we
sweet?
should.
Yeah.
Alright, Ben, speaking of sweet stuff, let's try our Buffalo Trace with a mixer. We have Coke Light today because I somehow ran out of Coke Zero.
I mean, it's less healthy, but the same good taste.
Who cares?
Hopefully.
0 calories.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers. It doesn't really overpower the Coke at the start. It comes off more as an aftertaste now.
My good lord, you mentioned that it was bitter when you're having it on the rocks. Now I'm getting nothing but bitterness.
Yeah, the bitterness really stands out. But you get at least there's a slight sweet aftertaste,
Yeah, I think that is the cilantro aftertaste of Coke.
It might be
But
just a
my
Coke.
god, as it stays on my tongue, I taste nothing but bitterness.
Yeah, it's really just it's just Coke with slightly more Coke. Yeah. Bitter Coke. Maybe you should have went with club soda.
Yeah, I think a
Yeah.
different mixer would have been ideal for this.
Maybe a neutral mixer would have been better for a bourbon. Yeah. Well, that's more information for a future episode.
Sounds good. Now that we have tasted the
Yes.
Buffalo Trace bourbon whiskey, we've tasted it neat, tasted it on the rocks. Now we've tasted it with the wrong choice of a mixer, which is called light. How would you rate this on, say, an arbitrary scale of 10?
Now, considering the Buffalo Trace neat was not too bad, I mean, the score was put down a bit by the on the rocks and the mixer, so I will give it maybe a 6.5, 7, around there.
I would say that I liked it the best neat, and that while it did get stronger on the rocks, it's definitely ruined with the choice of a wrong mixer. I would give it perhaps a 7. 7 out of 10. It's a strong flavor, yes, but the flavors don't exactly they don't fit my palate, and and with a mixer, it's just too bitter, man.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, that rounds out our review of the Buffalo Trace whiskey.
All right. Well, I certainly did not like the Buffalo Trace with a mixer. So,
I mean,
Ben, do you have anything good so that I can wipe away the nasty taste?
Well, I mean, it probably won't wipe away the nasty taste, only add to it, since we are going into the most insidious part about ideology.
Oh boy, hit me up.
Oh dear. So, you remember that I mentioned ideology impacts every part of our lives?
Certainly.
Well, it kind of works the same for anime, like the while anime like AOT, Psychopaths, they do discuss the influence of ideologies on the societies in the anime itself. We must also note that anime itself is also influenced by the ideologies that the writers have, right?
Certainly.
Yeah, so every part of the anime will reflect an ideology that has influenced it, from the characters to the plots, and to the visuals and everything else. So while some of these ideologies are more explicit than not, and we are able to identify them, other times they can be quite insidious and we may not be able to pick up on them. So for example, we can turn to our favorite genre of anime,
Isekai. Yes.
Yes. Isekai.
Isekai. And let us take a look at the genre as a whole. So we shall analyze some of the more generic tropes that make the genre the dumpster fire that we all know and love.
I do nothing but read the absolute most garbage trash isekais.
I mean,
let's go.
Yeah, that's kind of what we look for in Isekai, the trashiest parts of it. But yes, the trope of the Isekai is that a character dies in our world, preferably by the hands of Truck-kun if his schedule is open for that day.
They only get more and more creative nowadays.
Yes, Truck-kun can appear from anywhere. And they reincarnate in another world.
Yeah, but what they reincarnate is also getting more and more creative by the day. Whether it's a onsen water, a vending machine, a sword.
I wonder why we still watch this shit, man.
1 or 2.
Yes. Well, in any case, they often spawn into a world that is with some sort of superpower as part of a deal to save the world from God knows what. And some power that places them in a league above the inhabitants of said world.
Yes, my favorite cheat skills.
Yes, the fucking cheat skills. But during the course of their adventures, they are often shown to help improve the lives of the inhabitants using their superior knowledge, all while gaining allies and forming a veritable harem. Yes.
Assuming it's a male protagonist, I guess.
Well, in most cases, even in the female protagonists, they tend to get a harem of male. That's sidetracking a bit.
Well, isekais typically are your self-insert stories.
Yes,
so
power fantasies and whatnot. But so let us delve into that a bit more. So while not all isekai anime follow this general trope, so we can think of anime like what are some animes?
ReZero,
ReZero has the revive ability.
Konosuba.
Konosuba.
Wait, are you
is
looking
just-
for some kind of story where the character doesn't actually die?
The character doesn't actually have some sort of super overpowered shit.
A
some sort of
superpowered
cheat.
ability?
Yeah, some sort of cheat ability.
Oh, so you're talking about a story where the character is as generic, as useless as they could possibly be.
Essentially, yes.
Well, I can. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
There, I know a story where character where character doesn't actually die. I think Tsukimichi, in a moonlit fantasy or something along those lines.
Yeah.
The character is there. There's actually one isekai where I think the main character is actually has no powers. It's it's
No, let's not look at that. Yeah, but yeah, the fact that there are so few anime that have this self-insert protagonist not have some super overpowered ability, being a rare feature, is something that we should take note of. Yes. So yeah. So, while some heroes get summoned without having to die, while others do not feature the hero actively trying to save the world, we see most of the isekai portray the isekai world as something that is backwards and something that needs fixing by the main character.
yes.
Do you agree?
I would say so.
Quite fair, right? And yeah, and lo and behold, in comes a foreign hero who has superior knowledge and ability and is also benevolent, enough to wish to help improve the society using their knowledge and ability. Will you say that's an accurate summary?
Yes, I would.
Yes. So, while the context and differences in cultures seem not to be of concern, posing in terms of like how applicable their knowledge and whatnot is, it poses the knowledge as applicable for all circumstances, and the residents of the worlds as grateful for receiving this blessing from this savior.
Typically, is firearms in a world of fantasy and magic.
Yes. Firearms. The giving everyone the ability to fight back. Yes, but yeah. But besides the point, among other ideologies that have influenced this genre of anime, the main one that we can derive from this description of the isekai genre is the white savior ideology that seems to be rather dominant.
So just to clarify, we're talking about the ideology of the author, the writer in this case, right? It's how the ideology influences their writing in the case of a protagonist.
In the case of the protagonist and the story itself, how the writer has been influenced by the ideology of the white savior trope.
All right.
Yes. So we can see that it is reflected in stories where a foreign being, so this white savior, saves an inferior local culture using their superior knowledge and culture. So think of how most protagonists come in using knowledge of our current society, so our economic structure, which is capitalism, the knowledge of firearms, the knowledge of political systems and whatnot.
I think a good example of this would be how a realist hero saves the kingdom.
Yes, that is a very good example of white savior.
Yes, the main character uses the principles of Machiavelli from his seminal work, The Prince, in order to guide his political decisions. And he also uses his modern day knowledge of Japanese society in order to guide his agriculture, guide his city planning, guide all the social activity that is required by his kingdom.
Oh, I've never taken you as one to have read into the philosophical works of power and politics. The more you know.
The more you know, indeed.
Right. So yes, I would think it not be controversial to say that these stories follow a plot line where is somewhat let me redo this sentence. So I would think it not controversial to say that stories following such a plotline are generally somewhat entertaining, since they play towards the power fantasies that most viewers have, so your self-insert characters. And it is quite easy to come up with a story following such a plot. You know, the isekai hero coming in to save the world. So just some changes to the minor details of the story, such as the gimmicks, so like magic or firearms, and the name of the starting city, which just so happens to look the same in every isekai.
The typical starter village.
Yes, the characters, and lo and behold, it becomes an anime within the year.
You
But
know what they say? Some things always work the same. It's kind of like a Mr. Beast video. You know,
Yeah.
they have something right. You reuse the most generic story, but it always works.
yeah, if it works, it works. Yeah, but while it's not wrong to enjoy the dumpster fire that is the isekai genre of anime, we must note that ideologies that these anime follow and propagate are actually there, and they are influenced by the authors themselves, and that actually there is an underlying ideology that is being spread around. So a certain level of awareness while watching this anime is needed, especially for those who take inspiration from the anime to produce their own literature, since merely enjoying this trash may lead one to uncritically incorporate these ideologies into their pieces. So think about how every isekai anime is essentially the same, just a little bit different here and there.
Yeah, I
But,
think desiring to have a harem in real life is kind of a problem, especially
Mm.
if the social context do not match.
That's up for debate. But yeah, you can see how with the general with how each isekai anime follows the same trope, the ideology of the white savior is able to propagate, just like a virus that we should not mention for the sake of getting monetized. But yeah, so even those merely watching the anime for entertainment may be swayed into believing that what is being done by the main character is something that is acceptable or even desirable. So they may see these tropes being portrayed as something that is correct or just not wrong, right?
Yes, I think this is a case of being inspired to adopting a fictional character's traits without
And-
actually understanding whether the characteristics are congruent with the realities that which you exist in.
Exactly, and it's so much more. And these animes are able to inspire so much more because it is
It panders to the fantasy.
Yes, it panders
Yeah.
to the fantasy. Yes, so yes, but this is the most insidious aspect of ideology. Its ability to be transmitted like a virus without anyone noticing. So influencing our beliefs and behaviors when we watch anime without a critical eye.
Yes,
So that's why make sure you watch anime with a critical eye.
you should
And-
be a
yes.
connoisseur of trash.
Don't just watch everything. Make sure you think about it afterwards. But yeah, so that will be essentially my episode. So I think I've covered most of what I intended to talk about when it came to ideology. And hopefully it has been an entertaining rant, if not a bit long. So if you still feel like you haven't suffered enough, might I recommend a series that encapsulates a good deal of what I've covered in this episode?
Yeah, well, hit us with the episode. Hit us with the anime. Maybe I actually know what it is.
I think you should be familiar with it since it's not really an underground series and it has actually received an anime adaptation. So the
Alright.
series is called I'm Standing on a Million Lives, or for those more cultured individuals, 100万の命の上に俺は立っている.
I've definitely heard of that.
Yes. So it is an isekai, but what I love about this series is how it does not portray the protagonists of the series as infallible saviors with a one-size-fits-all solution to the world.
Yes, what I can say is that it doesn't just have one protagonist who leads everything, but rather it has a whole cast of protagonists, and it's always adding on to the number of protagonists and how it affects the individual actions that the protagonist takes every time they are isekai.
Exactly.
It's not a prototypical isekai where you just get transferred to another world. Rather, it plays the isekai trope well in that it's characters who currently live in a existing reality, and they get isekai to different parts of time, and they have to do missions in these different eras, which happen to be an alternative future.
Mm. Yes, so each individual protagonist in this group actually has their own ideologies, and we can see how each ideology is reflected in their actions and their beliefs.
That is true. The main character, a dude, has quite a nihilistic ideology regarding life,
Yes.
where he does not consider the value of life, or rather, he does not consider the value of life of the entire world or community, but he only values the lives of individuals that he considers valuable to him.
Mm.
Whereas other members of the protagonist cast, like Hakuzaki, she has a value of life that is more all-encompassing. She values the lives of everyone around her, and she tries her very best to save them all. And this goes into conflict with the main protagonist, as their values on life, their different ideologies on how they should handle the lives of enemies and allies alike, conflict with how they need to solve their missions.
Yes, that is a very good summary of the main characters in the series. So moving on to the plot of the series. So each arc delves into the nuances of the society which they find themselves in the specific timeline, and the problems it faces while placing the protagonist in a position where they are unable to immediately fix the problems that they see in at the snap of their fingers. So the crux of each arc revolves around how a dragon bishop, the bad guys of the series, attempts to manipulate the society into killing off its own members in order to generate enough energy to from people that are killed via unnatural means in order to revive evil dragons.
Yes.
So we can see how they manipulate society through ideologies that hit eerily close to what exists here in our own societies, paralleling the ills that plague us today. And we also get to see how the ideologies of the protagonists themselves hinder them in ways that hinder them in their mission to stop the dragon bishops.
That is true. The protagonists, while they do have a hack in that the world recognizes them as the typical hero position. However, just because they have the hero position doesn't mean that people are willing to follow them 100%. And not only that, they do not have a special power that would allow them to just solve the situation at the snap of a finger, like you said. Instead, they have to rely on counteracting the ideologies of the different societies and communities that they are placed in order to prevent them from killing themselves for the sake of the dragon bishops.
Exactly. So for those who have studied sociology, this series makes a great resource for ways in which to incorporate the theories that we have learnt into a narrative that is able to capture an audience beyond academia. Cause God knows that the sociology readings are a bore to get through even for those in the field such as myself. But for those who are unfamiliar with sociology, the fictional world that is used to tell the story of I'm Standing on a Million Lives lets you read about the woes that can plague a fictional society under specific material and production relations. While it may be uncomfortable to read at times because of how it might feel like your beliefs and values are being attacked, it being a work of fiction dampens this feeling, as you can feel it. You can view it more as entertainment and not a political piece of work. I'm pretty sure you yourself have felt slightly uncomfortable at times reading into how certain dragon bishops have manipulated society, hitting rather close to home.
Hardly. I actually relate a bit to the protagonist. I'm fairly nihilistic.
Well, maybe for others, things such as the value of hard work and those kind of stuff might be in question when reading this piece. But yeah, all in all, while the series may not be as engaging as other dumpster fires, that is the Isekai genre, nor as entertaining as other works focusing on fan service or the fight scenes.
High School DxD.
It is still a great piece nonetheless, giving you an insight into how ideology functions in a society and how we may better identify and understand it.
Sounds great.
Yes.
All in all, I think we've covered quite a stellar host of animes for this episode. We
Yes,
covered
a
Attack on
whole
Titan, Psycho Pass, Season 2 does not exist. We have covered Higurashi, of which I have not watched or read it, although I'm only faintly aware that females kill each other in that anime.
Don't worry.
And for the very end, we covered I Stand on a Million Lives.
Yes, the entire Isekai genre and the specific case of I'm Standing on a Million Lives. So yeah, that will be the end of the series for today. The episode, sorry. Yeah, I
So
think
at
that's
the
all.
very end of this episode, we would just like to reinforce our typical message. Please drink responsibly.
Mhm.
And if you enjoyed this episode, like, share, and subscribe this video.
Yes, and if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section, and we'll be around to answer whatever questions you may have.
Yes, it also gives us a chance to, expand our content a little bit.
Indeed. Tell us what you like and dislike about the episode, maybe whether we should focus more on a singular anime or whether going by topics is a good way to do things.
Alright.
Yes. Well, Ed,
Ben?
that should be the end of our episode. I hope that everyone has had a good time, and we'll see you again in
The next episode.
yeah.